So one of the keys to the course, and that's in the testimonials as well, is many students have mentioned the importance of it being how methodical and logical the order of the course. The course itself, I make sure I'm only teaching you what 80% of the time is coming up in the Quran, so that when I teach you something, when you go back to the Quran, you're seeing it regularly. That's the most important thing. So that motivates you when you're actually opening the Quran and saying, wow, I learned that today. Wow, I remember that. And so you're constantly reinforcing things. So we make sure that I take out as much of the complicated material and focus just on what you really need to know for the essential learning of the Arabic language for the Quran. And so you'll see the actual setup of the class. We've got lesson 1 here, and then I always start a lesson with questions. These questions point you back to when you actually finish the lesson. You go back to these questions after the lesson and you ask yourself, can I answer these questions? And that's really when you know that you know it. When you're revising, the key for a student is if someone were to come up to you and ask you what is a noun sentence, for example, off the top of your head you can tell them. And that's real revision, in that you can actually, that's going to tell yourself, that you're going to be able to know yourself and tell me that you understand the material. And so these questions at the beginning are just to give you a taste of what you're going to study, and also for you to go back to at the end of the lesson and in your revision as well, so that you know that you understand the material. Okay? And so, as the first point of the first lesson, I talk about intention. But when I'm saying that, I'm saying, what is your specific goal? What's your specific goal in learning this? And I said one of my students, his goal was to be able to understand the Imam in Taraweeh the next Ramadan. That was a specific goal. He achieved his goal because he had something specific that he was motivated and determined to achieve. So that's very important. I mean, your intention could be, I want to give the opportunity that my children understand their religion better than I did when I was young. That's a motivation. Next year, I can sit down with my children and go through, the Quran with them, and that I can give them an understanding that I never was able to have. For example, that's a goal. But it's specific. That's very, very important, the goal. And then once you've got that, we start going into the grammar. You'll notice, if you have the grammar point, can I identify the difference between a noun, verb and participle? And then I have some theory here. I have an explanation of verbs, nouns, particles. I try to keep that to a bare minimum. The explanation, I try to keep as brief as I can. And also, I try to make sure that the actual grammar terminology is taken out. As much as I possibly can, I try to make the terminology as simplified as I can. And then, straight away, we go into, once we've gone through that, and that's the first part of the lesson, I explain it on the board. We go through that, I explain it on the board, and then I start getting you to give me examples. And so the class isn't just focused on the teacher just explaining. I would say about 2 hours of the 2-hour class time, I'm speaking probably about 20 to 30 minutes maximum throughout the whole thing. Most of it is me going around assessing your learning. Most of the class time is not you also as just studying by yourself. In language learning, because I've been obviously teaching languages for 14 years, my main focus they always talk about is that the teacher has minimum talk time, and I'm seeing you guys talking with one another. So it's very interactive, the class. It's basically you asking one another, knocking ideas off one another, because that's when you really know something. Not just sitting there and saying, yeah, I understand. You don't truly understand something until you're engaging with someone, trying to explain it to someone else, or you're trying to understand it from someone else. And so I go around the class trying to facilitate that. So that's much of the class time. After I've done the theory, we try to elicit answers from you as students, and then I said, now amongst yourselves, now you try to find examples, come up to, and then we come back to it together as a class in order that you can understand, in order to see whether you understand or not. So that's very important to the class as well. And so then we do actual examples. So you'll see, straight away I'll throw you into examples. In the first lesson, this is just unique to this lesson really, is that I've got a box of how much vocabulary do you know from the Fatiha? So the first surah of the Quran, we come together and see how much we know. And then you'll see, then we're straight into actually more exercises where we're translating. So this is the main bulk of the work that we do in the class, is sentences from Arabic and you translating them, simple as. And so you'll work together in the class and you'll be translating the sentences, and then afterwards we all come together and discuss our translations, and if we're right or if we're wrong. That's the main bulk of the class. And so I don't ask you, read that in Arabic. I just simply say to you, what translation did you get for number 1? And so you're not even required to read out in Arabic. As long as you can see that says in your head, هذا kitab, that's all that's required of you in terms of your the prerequisites for the course. Once we go through, and each lesson has no more than 2 grammar points to it. I make sure there's no more than 2 grammar points to each lesson. Then, once we finish those, we go, if you see on page 7, you'll see it says, what have we learned today? So we recap straight away. We recap all that we've done in that lesson. Can you answer those questions? And then we have more sentences at the bottom. You'll see on page 7, more examples of what we've covered. And then, once you've done that, the rest of the lesson is answer keys. So I provide answer keys to all the exercises in that lesson. Once you go on to page 19 after that, you'll notice then we come to lesson 2. Again, questions about material that you're going to cover in that lesson. But before we even go into the next lesson's material, the content, again we're recapping vocabulary from the first chapter. And so I choose the 10 most important words from the chapter that we did in the previous lesson. And then we have sentences reinforcing the key concepts that we studied in the previous lesson before we jump into the new material. So I try my utmost to reinforce so that we don't move on to the next point until you've fully understood it. How else do I reinforce that? There's 2 ways. First of all, I provide you with a vocabulary app that you can put on your phones. So each week you'll be sent the vocabulary for the chapter on your phones so that you can recap and revise. But also, I have a 1-hour online revision class that I do in the week with you, so that you can, we all come together and I show you how to revise the material. Because I've noticed the biggest problem that we have at school is we study what, but we never study how to learn. And so many of us, including myself when I was learning, we never really knew how to study. The efficient way to actually recap material and to make sure that we've understood the material. So because of that, I've seen that that's a struggle for my students. What I do is I have an online lesson that you come on and we interact with one another. Basically it's a whiteboard, and then you have the bar on the side, and the bar on the side you converse with me, you type it with me, and I go through the vocabulary, I go through the grammar, and I teach you how to actually go over that material to make sure you understood it. And also I go through parts of the Quran that week on the revision to say, look here it is in practice, to actually motivate you as well. And so in essence, you've got the 2-hour class time, you've got the 1-hour revision time. That's all you really need, the 3 hours in the week. Now you might say, well, hang on a minute, I might not be able to actually attend that. They're actually, even though they're live sessions, they're recorded, and so you can actually download those revision classes and access them at your convenience. And also, the 2-hour class is videoed as well, so that you can actually, if you can't attend the class, you can actually access that as well in your own convenience. And then also, the other option that people have, if it's convenient for them, is if they can't attend the lesson here and they know that there's another class going on in one of the other cities, as long as they inform me 24 hours in advance, so I can make sure that there's a space for them, they can go and attend that class that week if they couldn't make it here in Leeds. And so that's one. I know that one of the main concerns people have is it possible for me? Am I going to be able to do it? Some people have studied Arabic courses before, and they think I can do it then. I found it too difficult. I try to facilitate the learning process for you as much as I possibly can. And so this is not like any other course. The sort of support you get is quite unique to other courses. Also, you're able to email me. You've got access to me through email, so you can ask me questions. And what a number of my students do as well in the course, they team together with people who live close by to them, and they actually meet up once a week. Previous students, they form WhatsApp groups so they can ask each other questions. And so it's about, the whole purpose behind this is to try to form a sort of a community of people who are passionate about understanding the Quran and connecting to the Quran together, and really trying to access the guidance of the Quran so they can change their lives. That's my real goal for this, is that we get people who are really passionate about really trying to understand the Quran in their lives and implement it and change their lives. So that's the how,